But I think of everything you're doing now, right? So you're leading the storytellers, these news folks of the future. You're writing on the side. How do you think the industry around producing content, engaging content has changed? Because we talked about back in the day, right? Like when you made the leap and you came to WNEP in 2001, and you moved to Northeastern Pennsylvania around that time. And back in the day, it wasn't going to work in this market. I'm going to go here. I'm going to do this. I mean, the whole landscape of how not only news is produced, but this type of content, it's changed.
Yeah, I feel like we came up under certain rules that no longer exist. Those rules are not there anymore. And we can spend some time being upset about that, or we can just say, all right, then what's the new game? And I think what you're doing right here, right now, is the new game. It's this content on demand. It's on your own time. It is trying to make it sexy enough for people to click on.
Everybody, so glad you are back. And today's guest, somebody I've worked with for more than 20 years. She has a name, a face you know, but she is up to some crazy cool, innovative, and creative projects. So I was like, we have to get a life update on the one, the only, Northeastern and Central Pennsylvania's. I'm going to call you a news icon in this area. I mean, 20 plus years. It's a long time in the biz, and you're still in the biz. Julie Sidoni.
Hello. I'm so happy to be on your couch today.
It almost got weird there for a second. Now, by the way, you look fantastic.
Thanks. Thank you.
You're killing it. You're like rocked out, like ready to go.
It's probably the stress diet, really.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
No, you look great. So we have to dive into it. I think even before we talk about what you're up to, even some of the cool creative projects you're working on that literally people will be able to get their hands on. I think you need to share the story, how you and we not only worked together during your tenure at WNEP TV,
Right.
where we had a great career together, but gosh, even before that, 20 plus years. So I'll let you tell the story, because I think if I told it, it's very like, and I met my friend Julie, where Julie's more like, and I met this hot mess when he was 18.
Well, I don't recall you being a hot mess, but I
had frosted tips.
You did have frosted tip, but it was of the day.
Yeah, it's one of my many natural hair colors.
Yeah, well, keep things interesting.
Yeah.
You are a lot blonder than the last
little
time
bit,
I saw you.
A little bit.
Yeah, so you were, what, 18, not even 18, 16, 17 years old. You're a high school kid living in Johnstown, PA, and I am working in Johnstown at WJAC, and here you are.
That was your first reporting job.
That was my first on-air job. I had come from radio, NPR, WDUQ in Pittsburgh, but that was my first on-air TV job, and there you are. You're just like this, like a fly, like buzzing around all the
I'm
time.
like, hey, it's me again. Let me in.
You were just dying to work there. You wanted to be on the air. You wanted to be a reporter. Let me at it. Let me at it. And I recall thinking, like, who is this kid? Who's this kid?
No, meanwhile, the truth is you're like, that kid's waiting by your cars again, everybody.
Well,
yeah, waiting for everybody to walk out of work. So I'd be like, hey, can you talk to me?
Hi, hey, it's me. It's
Yeah.
Ryan. But I always give you a heck of a lot of credit, though, because you make it hard. I mean this in a good way. You make it hard for people to say no. You don't take no for an answer. And then you get what you ask for. Yeah. It's a real lesson, especially in the business like that if you don't just keep going at it, you're not going to get anywhere. So
I just wear people down.
You just wear,
do the interview.
He wears.
Give me the job.
Down. No, but I mean, it was clear that you had talent, and it was clear that you really wanted to be doing it. So I don't blame whoever it was. Who was the GM at the time?
It was Dick Schrott was the general manager who said, let's give this guy a shot. So I started part-time in the control room, learning how to execute a newscast, tape loading. This is when we had tapes that we would plug in.
Right, but most people don't get that until they're 24 and 25, and here you are.
No, I was just like kicking the door down.
You did.
Yeah.
That's not an exaggeration. So it doesn't surprise me that you have managed to be as successful as you are, because that's just you.
So I think it's interesting, and that means a lot. But I was going to say, from your time at WJAC TV in Johnstown, when we first met, I mean, I want to talk about sort of your career and your decision to leave you're still in news, but your decision to leave your anchor job at
Right.
WNEP TV, because people always like, there has to be tea there, and we're gonna fill the cup up today, and she's gonna just spill the beans. But I think the biggest thing is, how long were you in Johnstown, and how did you end up in northeastern Pennsylvania? Because you're from St. Mary's, Elk County.
Excuse me. Yeah. Technically, that the Johnstown Altoona market is my hometown market. Technically.
Yeah.
I'm from St. Mary's, so I grew up watching those stations and the Pittsburgh stations, which we also managed to get for some reason. So yeah, that was my first down air job. That is where I met you, and I was there around a year and a half, I think. Remember, 9/11 happened in there.
Yeah.
So September 11th of '01, I'm still there. And it was right around that time I was sending tapes, and tapes showing my age
VHS
here.
tapes.
VHS tapes.
Oh, I still have mine.
Sending them out everywhere. I had pretty much done what I could do there. I thought it was time for me to move on. I desperately wanted to be in Pittsburgh because a lot of my friends were still there. I wasn't out of college that long, and they were pharmacy majors and PA and PT majors. They were still having a ball. They're
Right.
just like having their college experience still, and I kind of missed that. So I was really excited to get back to Pittsburgh. As it turned out, that's not who called. It was Bob Absher from WNEP who called for a job.
How many resume tapes did you send out before you get a call? Because I'm always fascinated by this. I remember sharing my story with 68 resumes and tapes. I got 3 phone calls, and WNEP was one of them. This was back in the day when they would send postcards, rejection letters. Like, we went in another direction. I could have wallpapered a small bathroom. How about you?
I think I probably sent out 30 the first time around, and I ended up at WJAC. But I sent out far fewer the second time around, because by then I knew I didn't really want to. I'm not going to Pocatello, Idaho. I didn't want to be in Bozeman, Montana, where all those the tiny markets where you have to start out, or at least back when we were coming up, you had to start out there. So I kept it a little more around the area. I didn't want to be too far from my family.
Right. So you came here in what year?
2002.
2002.
In fact, I say this all the time, my first day at WNEP was 02/02/02. Wow. It's Groundhog Day.
Okay. Did it feel like
There's
that then every
poetry.
other day when you came here?
There's
Like, oh my
poetry
God, we're
there,
doing
yeah.
this again. No, so you came here, and I don't know, were you under the impression, like a lot of people in the industry at the time? I mean, content creation has shifted tremendously.
It's not even the same ballgame.
Totally. But were you telling yourself, I'm going to come to northeastern Pennsylvania, I'm going to work at this leading station, WNEP TV, I'm going to work here for a year or two, and then I'm going to move on. I want to get back to Pittsburgh. What happened?
Yeah, absolutely. That was totally the plan. Yeah.
Same with me, and then this area just sucks you in.
Well,
in
I
a
was-
great way. I love it.
I say that I was steadily promoted. I was treated well. There was no reason really for me to go.
Yeah.
Even though that was the plan, every time those 2 or 3 years would come up and I would think about going somewhere else, there was another show they were creating, or there was something new to do. And I like to do that. I like to challenge myself, something bigger, something different, something I can sink my teeth into. And as long as those opportunities were coming, I was perfectly comfortable.
And then, of course, you start building a family here.
Yeah.
And then one thing leads to the next, and then you have a kid. And then,
Now you got kids in school, and now you're hesitant to take kids away from school. So sure.
what was your, I guess, the aha moment where you said, all right, I'm not going to go to Pittsburgh. I'm going to stay here. Was it just because of the innovation of the shows, or you just loved it, loved the area? That's for me. I fell in love with this area.
I'm sorry to report there wasn't really one aha moment. I just kept thinking, what is it that I'm looking to find elsewhere? I remember I had it wasn't an offer, but I was talking to a news director in North Carolina to do a weekend anchor report during the week kind of scenario. I was probably in my mid-20s. And I was seriously considering, it was a little bit more money, not a lot more money. And I kept thinking, all right, so the weather would be different. What else would be different if I got there? The answer is not much.
Yeah.
You've heard same circus, different monkeys, and
Literally.
different clowns, or whatever you want to say.
And I think, and it's not only television, right, as a whole. It's all of these different careers. It's literally sometimes the same thing in this market as it is in South Carolina or North Carolina or from Florida. And I get it.
Yeah, I realized I wasn't really doing much for myself. It was more a geographic change than it would be an actual challenge, and I need a challenge.
And we have so much to get to on what you're doing today and some of the creative projects you're working on. But I think for you, how long were you at WNEP?
Almost 20 years.
20 years.
Just shy of 20 years.
So here you are, 20 years at the station. You are literally the prominent female face for the anchor desk. You're anchoring, gosh, what was it? The noon, the 4?
4:30, the 5, the 5:30, and I had a franchise.
Yeah. So you're doing all this stuff. People will look at this, because I've heard this too. How can you walk away from that? How could you change up your career? Walk me through that.
I was bored out of my mind. Absolutely bored out of my mind. I was doing nothing creative. And I'm a creative person. If I've learned nothing about myself over the last 20 years, it's that I need a creative outlet. And I think work did that for a while. You know, reporting, there's a little bit of creativity in reporting, not a lot. Obviously, you can't go making up facts and figures. That's not what I mean. But since I'm a creative writer too, I come at it from a different perspective. I think that news can be really well written and very interesting and still be factual. And I had a lot of ideas about what I wanted to do, kind of the work that I wanted to have my name on instead of the work that my name was on. And I realized I was not going to be able to do that at WNEP.
Coming back, though, before you made the decision to leave, when you started having these, I guess, inklings that you're like, I want to be more creative, I want to be more challenged, you went back to school.
I did, yeah. I did go back to school.
I don't think people know that. Tell me about your journey going back to school, what you majored in, and what was your why?
I've always wanted to be a writer. When I was 8, I was writing. I have notebooks stashed everywhere. I'm a writer. I know it. I always have been. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what I wanted to do for a living. I was talked out of by a lot of very well-meaning people in high school. Oh, you can't just be a writer. Oh, that you're never going to make any money doing that, et cetera, et cetera. And I started thinking, all right, so what are some of the options? What are the professions I could do where writing is a big part of it? And I landed here. Mm-hmm. And that was that. I mean, once I got my taste of working in journalism, I never looked back. That was it. But I realized how much I missed actual creative writing. And it turns out one of the best programs to do that is right here in our backyard at Wilkes, the Maslow program. Mm-hmm. And so I went back to school.
While you were working full time.
Yeah.
I think that's important. And you're a mom of two at this time.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Jack was really little. He was maybe 1 or 2 at the time. He was a baby.
How many years were you in school while you're still working at WNEP? For your master's?
January of 2017 I began, and I got my MFA, my Master's of Fine Arts in Creative Writing, in 2019. So about 2 years.
Did you have anybody ever say, like, why are you doing that? You really don't need that. Why are you going back?
No.
You did it for you?
Yeah. Yeah, and I found my people. It's great to find your people, and you know exactly what I mean when I say that. And that can mean different things for different people. But I walked into this room and I thought, wow, people are talking about their characters like they're real people. Finally, I'm not the only one.
Were they in costume when they were doing it? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just joking.
Brian, you need to know some writers. You need writers in your life.
All right. So you go through this, and then as you continue, right, you finish school, your contract is coming up. Because we want to point out, no matter if you're WNEP or another media company, even on radio, people have to sign contracts, and you have non-competes and all this stuff. So your deal was coming up. At what point, what year was it when you're just like, I think I need something different? And tell me about that decision and how you ultimately arrived to leaving being this top anchor in this part of Pennsylvania.
Well, the decision was also personal as well as professional. Personal meaning I was getting home rather late. You know, when you anchor a show in the evenings, I wasn't getting home until late. Dinner time is past. I haven't helped the kids with homework. I have no idea what's going on. I really felt like a stranger in my own house. So it wasn't one particular night or instance. It just felt like I needed to be a bigger part of my home life. I needed to be a bigger part of my kids' school lives. I didn't know their other parents, the parents of the other students. I didn't know them very well. It just occurred to me how absent I had been. And I feel like I missed a lot with Charlie. He's 14 now, but my younger son, Jack, is 7. And I thought, you still have a shot here with the little one, and with Charlie getting into high school, which I'm starting to see as a very age.
Right.
So it was,
and I can't believe you have a 14-year-old who's taller than you.
Oh, he's 5'11". He's way taller than me. Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, I'm sitting here staring at you. You look the same as you did when we started working together in 2001. I swear.
Oh, you're about to ask me a hard question.
No,
You're buttering me
no,
up,
I'm
aren't
not.
you?
So I guess though for you, you knew one, you said you were bored and you weren't growing, right?
Wasn't
And
growing.
that's a lot of people at a lot of companies. I was there. I get it. You make the decision. When was the year? And tell me the talks. Did you try to stay there and try to figure out how do I stay at a gig where I'm anchoring, I'm doing this, I'm doing that at WNEP, and then I can have my family life the way I want it, or it just didn't work out?
It just never worked out. When you're, as you brought up the contract, when you're renegotiating contracts, there's a certain time for that. There's a certain time period for that. And if you don't find something within that period, there's nothing else for you. What are you going to do? I have a mortgage. I have kids going to college soon.
Right.
I had my own college to pay for there.
And your husband, Jeff, who's super intelligent, he's also like my partner, Matt. He's like Susie Orman. He's like, well, great. Well, you need to work because we got bills to pay. Right?
So which waitressing job are you taking on
Exactly.
a Saturday night for that
Yeah.
that you want to pay for?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. I know we joke about that all the time. You and I would be just like skipping in the fields of sunflowers.
And we'd also be broke
with
because the way we
cash.
spend money.
We'd have a great time though.
Yeah. So
Really
though
great time.
ultimately, so you just realize your contract's up, another opportunity comes along. Tell me about that.
Well, the other opportunity, if you're referring to WVIA, it was a little bit accidental, and in that I knew that the job was open. I knew that they were looking for a news director months and months and months before I even considered it. I did not want to be news management. I knew about the job and was telling my other friends about it. Like, hey, did you hear about WVIA? They're starting a news department. You should apply for that job.
Your knee-jerk reaction right away, I don't want to be in a leadership role.
Nope, not me.
Which
not it.
surprises me because working with you for 20 years, you have been a great mentor to people. You were so patient, so great at helping people improve their writing. And people are away by that, but you're just like, eh.
There's so much corporate involved in a job like that, payroll and invoices and the setting up of this and the Google Calendar meetings. And I didn't want any part of that. I thought that was even further. I wanted to run toward the creativity, and I felt like that was even further away from it. And so,
So here you are, you're doing it though.
here I am doing it.
So what is your role at WVIA? Because you guys are doing a lot of cool projects, and then we're going to dive into what you're doing personally on this side.
WVIA is really doing some amazing things right now. It's a growing media company, which you don't hear about very often.
Especially in public broadcasting.
Public broadcasting. Right. We're doing some great things. We're hiring people left and right. It's a really, and I mean this in a good way, it's a nice thing to be in a company that is on the way up. And I think we know it. We can feel it sort of fizzing and bubbling there in the halls. So at WVIA, for people who have been in Northeastern and Central Pennsylvania, it's a legacy station. It's been around for 50 years, but it never had a news department of its own. And the CEO and president, her name is Carla McCabe, she comes from a station in Kansas City. And news was very big there. It was her vision to set up a news department here, to also offer some really great information, some really interesting storytelling. And it was all Carla. So looking back, I suppose it might have been an interview, but at the time I thought, just go have coffee with Carla. We have a mutual friend. And he said, just, you know what, she's not from around here. Sit down and have some coffee. You never know. You might make a new friend. And I did. And 10 minutes into that conversation, I thought, I think I'm in trouble. Because all the things that I was hoping to do in my journalism career, she was saying, it's possible. We can do that here. Why don't you come and help make that possible here? Journalism is service, which is probably where I should have been all along.
But how did you get to that decision? Because people will say you're at the leading station in the market, like you have all these shows you're anchoring. But you said I was bored. But what was like the aha moment that you're like, I'm taking this gig?
You keep wanting to. I know you want like the moment. I never had a moment.
Okay.
I lost a lot of sleep for a couple months there. Yeah. This was not something that
You didn't make easy.
No.
It wasn't an easy decision.
No decision is ever. I'm the most indecisive person on the planet. I actually just wrote an essay about that. I don't know what it is I'm trying to protect myself from, but I'm terrible when it comes to decisions, little ones or big ones. Don't ask me where I want to eat lunch. Remember Mike Cholko?
One of the photographers at WNEP. Yeah.
man, Mike Cholko, a longtime photojournalist at WNEP. He was my partner for a while, and he would say, "All right, I'm going to treat you like my daughters. Are you ready? We have lunch choice 1, 2, or 3. You get to pick from those 3." Because he said, "I already know you're not going to be able to make a damn decision about this." So back to what we're talking about, it really wasn't. There was nothing aha about any of this. It was a real sit down and think about where I have the most chance to grow and do new, cool things. And that was WVIA.
And I think see your kids more and be a part of your family and that life.
I already knew the pace was getting to be more than I could handle. And I don't mean to suggest that it's changed. I've just changed. I'm older. I'm 20 plus years where I started.
Girl's still killing it.
Well, I don't know about that. I don't have the energy anymore. I can't keep up with that. I used to love it. The adrenaline, the rush.
A breaking story.
Yeah, absolutely. I was good at that. But that doesn't appeal to me anymore. It's a young person's game, I think.
So before you took that officially, what was your last week or day like at WNEP? I mean, I look back, people ask me, I was an emotional mess the last 3 months. Because you question, like, I'm like you in the sense where you're like, I don't know if I'm doing the right thing. Do I do this? Do I not do this?
Yeah, and I still didn't know whether I was doing the right thing. I should work on being more sure of myself, I think, but I will always second guess. I would have second guessed it had I decided to stay at WNEP. I'll always be second guessing. I think that's just part of my nature. But I don't recall having a super emotional last day because once I had made the decision, I had made the decision. And I know this sounds ridiculous given my choice of profession, but I don't really like to be the center of attention. I just wanted it to all go away. I did not want my last day to be my last day. I didn't want flowers on the air. I didn't want a tribute piece.
You just wanted to be like, peace out and walk off the set.
Yeah. And not that I don't appreciate those things were lovely. Management at WNEP was great. John Meyer obviously is a very good friend of mine, and so,
who we both worked with for 20 years. Oh my gosh!
So it was. I'm not saying it wasn't lovely, but I almost thought about I'm just going to call in sick my last day, and then none of this is going to.
And then just ride off into the sunset.
Yep.
So before we get to these creative projects you're working on personally, tell me about your day to day now. WVIA is doing some really cool, creative things in the news world, but it's different than what you'd see on a regular newscast.
Definitely. Also, we're doing some great documentaries, which I'm not involved in, for the record. We have a film department doing some awesome documentaries. We have one coming up about the Southern Columbia football team.
Wow.
Jim Coles is featured in.
All right.
We have another one. It's all about pizza. So, we're doing some...
Do you need taste testers for that?
We just might. So, the documentary side is doing some really interesting things. The news department, I think people assumed when I came on board there was going to be some sort of newscast. And that is not the case. There is not going to be a newscast. We are churning out some great journalism every day that lives online, digitally. It's pushed out through social media. We have a weekly newsletter. And of course, since we're a radio station, you will hear some of those pieces during Morning Edition and All Things Considered. Those are the 2 NPR shows that people might be familiar with that now have local hosts. Those are people I've hired. And they're coming up with some really good local, long-form pieces. We're not doing breaking news. No fires, no cars into... What's with cars into buildings around here? There's a lot of cars into buildings around here.
All the time.
Yeah. So we're not...
Don't miss covering that.
It feels great to not have to be reactive to a headline. Something happened, we got to go. Yeah. That's not where we are at all. We like to say that we're going to continue a conversation on some really important, very super local topics. So veterans affairs, aging population, health and medical reporting specifically for the aging population, climate and environment. Rural government is a big one. All of the little decisions that are made during your local school board meetings, your township supervisors. That's the important stuff, even more than presidential politics. It's what's going on in your backyard.
And people check it out. It's all online?
It's digital and it's audio right now. Yep.
Okay.
So it's all there, and it's I'm building the newsroom that I wish I had, which is free from corporate influence. There's no deadline pressure. So I can send a reporter to a story and they come back and say, I just don't know if that's what we thought it was. All right, that doesn't have to be a story today. There's nothing,
Yeah.
you don't have to fill that spot. Or if they come back from a story and say, I really think we could use this perspective, I'll say, great, take another 3 days for that if you want. It's freedom and it's flexibility in storytelling, continuing the conversation is what I like to say.
And I think what's amazing, not only you're kind of training the storytellers of the future, right? With all the Julie Sidoni skills.
Well, I don't know about that.
As their news director, right? Tell me though what you're doing on the side to really challenge yourself creatively, because you don't not only got your master's in fine arts for
Yeah.
creative writing,
Yeah.
right? You're doing something about it.
I've been writing.
People don't know this. I mean, you're like a writer on the side, and you're preparing.
Yeah.
Oh my God, books are in the work. All sorts. What are the projects?
I don't know that they're in the works. It's just that I've been writing my whole life. And so now I have a bunch of first drafts that are just kind of collecting dust. I've been doing some personal essay. I write a lot, but it's nothing I'm going to try to get out there and publish immediately because I have some other things to do first.
Right.
But
Mainly fictional stories too.
both. I have fiction and non. It's funny. I was running from my journalism background for a while there, and I was concentrating on fiction. And then it occurred to me, why wouldn't you just go with what you know? So it's interesting that when I sit down to write personal essay these days, it ends up sounding like journalism. I end up having to call and interview somebody about it, or that's hard to erase. That training is hard to erase. So.
But I think of everything you're doing now, right? So you're leading the storytellers, these news folks of the future. You're writing on the side. How do you think the industry around producing content, engaging content has changed? Because we talked about back in the day, right? Like when you made the leap and you came to WNEP in 2001, and you moved to Northeastern Pennsylvania around that time. And back in the day, it wasn't going to work in this market. I'm going to go here. I'm going to do this. I mean, the whole landscape of how not only news is produced, but this type of content, it's changed.
Yeah, I feel like we came up under certain rules that no longer exist. Those rules are not there anymore. And we can spend some time being upset about that, or we can just say, all right, then what's the new game? And I think what you're doing right here, right now, is the new game. It's this content on demand. It's on your own time. It is trying to make it sexy enough for people to click on. And I'm not making fun. I think this is just where it's headed. There's no more appointment television. I talk about this all the time with my with my husband, that Charlie, what does he watch? What appointment television does he watch? Sports only. Sports is the only thing he will sit down at 3:00 and turn the television on for. Nothing else. This is the generation coming up.
Right. Where do you want to be in the next 5 years? What do you see for Julie Sidoni, your professional, personal life?
Honestly, I realize how cheesy this sounds, but it's starting to be more exciting to me when the people on my team do well. I want to see them get some awards. I want to see them become great journalists. It has turned for me. I feel like I'm only where I am because a whole lot of people stopped and turned around and said, let me show you what I know. And I feel very strongly that it's my time to do that now. It's time for me to stop and turn around and say, here's some things I know. So in 5 years, I don't know what becomes of me, but I certainly hope WVIA News is great and award-winning and thought-provoking, and it's where smart people want to go get their news.
Best advice you ever got for your career, personal life, and who did it come from?
My dad. And he said, don't ever run from something, run to something. So I used that when I was at NEP, am I just running from this? Where am I going? It was never the right time to go because I didn't know where I was going to. And then something came along that I wanted to run to, not just from. And I've used that personally as well. In relationships.
I think what's amazing, playing off of what you said, your family was at the forefront of the decision. Yeah. What do your kids think of having mom now at more of their games? Because you have a lot more flexibility in your schedule now.
I do.
You're showing up at their games. You're more involved. How do they feel about it?
Well, there's like this. Hey, can we do meatloaf on Wednesday? Oh, sure. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm kidding around, but they have a lot more demands for me now.
Okay.
I'm a mom taxi, and I didn't used to be, but I love that because it's part of what I missed out on, I think.
And I'm getting excited because you mentioned food, but I think you have the best food story that we ever shared in my 20 years here in northeastern Pennsylvania. I should say 17, 18 years.
Are you sure?
Related to food. When I came here, I was 21 to northeastern and central Pennsylvania. Sort of a nervous wreck trying to meet people. And of course, you, working with you for years, had my back. So did John Meyer. We all worked together at our first TV job. But we ate together a lot.
Well, you were, not the person I see in front of me right now.
I think back in the day, they'd call that husky. I don't think you can find those jeans anymore, but I had a pair.
Yeah, well, you liked your KFC. There was a lot of buckets of KFC, and I'm not gonna
I better get an
lie.
endorsement from the Colonel for this, by the way. Sorry, we have some fresh plants in here, little gnat flying around.
Yes.
But go ahead, tell that story.
You had just come here. You had just taken the job here, I think. And I remember you had an apartment somewhere, and you were calling people baby years ago. Hey, baby, 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 baby.
That became my nickname.
I know
now,
it
baby,
did.
baby, because I was also like the youngest at the station at the time.
Baby, you want to come over and kill a bucket of KFC?
And you said,
yes, as a matter of fact, I do.
but we should point out it was the family meal that I would normally order for myself. And then I'm like, hey, I have plenty. And you're like, is this just for you? And that was like my weekly thing, the family meal from KFC.
Listen, you do you.
And we shared that.
Yeah, we did.
And that's like a favorite.
I don't regret it.
Yeah.
Do you regret it?
I think you were probably grossed out on how much I ate, but it's pretty impressive.
I'm still sitting on your couch today,
And
Ryan.
I love it. And you look the same. Like you're like Benjamin Button. You're not aging.
That is not true at all.
No, you look great. Killing it.
Good concealer. That's
Okay.
all there. That's all it is.
Any final thoughts before we wrap this up? I mean, where you're heading, projects you're working on. I mean, you're doing some great stuff. I love WVIA, their documentaries, the news content you guys are pushing out. Anything else you want to pepper in? And I want to thank you, by the way, because when I was thinking of going out and shooting my shot and changing the career, you and I had a lot of conversations.
Yeah, we did.
And I remember calling you, and I was just a mess. And I was like, do I stay? Do I go? Do I stay? Do I go? What do I do? And I appreciate that. And I will be forever grateful because I had people ahead of me who I could look to, and I'm like, they took the leap and they're okay. You're going to be all right.
I didn't necessarily want you to go just to go, though.
Yeah.
It had to be the right. It had to be the right situation for you. And what I couldn't figure out was whether it was the right situation. But I know all the way back to when I first met you, I knew you were going to figure it out. You just needed a little bit of,
You basically, you helped. You were great.
I'm trying to come up with the exact right word here. But yeah, you just needed to know that you were going to be fine. But I think you did at the heart of it. You already knew.
And I think when we had this conversation about a year ago, I never thought we'd be on the couch doing this and what I'm doing now, what you're doing now. It's crazy.
Oh, but I did. I knew.
Okay. You saw it. Any final thoughts, though? Just where you're heading, what you're doing? I mean, you have such a great family. Your husband, Jeff, super cool. And I always joke, too. I'm always like, your husband looks like he walked out of a GQ catalog. Every time I see him, I feel like Shrek.
You're a little bit in love with him.
I love me some Jeff.
It's all right.
But I mean, your kids are
very handsome.
thriving, and I'm so glad you have more time to spend with them now.
Yeah, it's
And I would love to come for meatloaf.
come on down for meatloaf any day, Ryan. Yeah, no, I don't really. I have zero words of wisdom. I have no idea what will become of my writing. I have no idea what will become of my news department. All I can do is I can't change the world. I can affect my little corner of it. And so that's all I'm going to try to do.
I love it. To me, I feel like I'm sitting on the couch with like a triple threat. You're a great journalist, great creative writer, and people don't realize this. You're a great singer.
Yeah,
This gal has a set of pipes on her. We don't have time for that. That's a whole nother podcast.
I'd like to get back to it. I actually called Marco Marcinko the other day, and I said, all right, it's time. And he goes, okay, we're going to talk about that.
to get back in the band.
Yeah, well, I mean, I never was in his band for the record.
But
But
I remember so many professional sporting events. You would sing the national anthem for it, and people would be like, I can't believe she can sing. I'm like, Julie, you're like the Britney Spears of television news.
I'm not sure how to unpack that.
Maybe the original Britney
Sentence.
Spears. Maybe not right now, but you know what I mean? Like you could do everything. I was always blown away. I was like, she can sing, she can write, she can report. So Anyway,
Well, we'll see what happens, but I'm excited for you. Ryan. I'm excited to see what happens with your business and the show and all of it.
and I'm thrilled you were here, looking like a rock star.
Yeah. Well,
I will be down for meatloaf.
I did put makeup on just for you today. I don't
appreciate that.
put makeup on anymore. That's been nice.
You're the best. So good to see you.
Yeah,
Thank
you
you so
too.
much for your time. Everybody, the one and only Julie Sidoni. And when she drops books, content you got to read, I'll share those on my social media, on the YouTube channel. It was just so great to catch up with a longtime friend, somebody I've worked with for more than 20 years. And we still talk and we still type.
Yeah, it's great.
You're the best.
You're the best.
All right.
No, you the best.
See you next time.